2026 and like the advent of Netscape. Point being, we have all these sort of like cool internet tools, but who's going to make a browser to make it work for everyone? Right? Same thing with the email protocol. And right now we're seeing, who's going to win. Ripple's obviously up front doing a lot of cool stuff, but so is Hyperledger, and there's, other competitors there. So I guess the question is, what are you guys seeing? Who do you hear about the most? And is this going to be like a winner-take-all market? Is there going to be just sort of like one blockchain, or is there going to be a bunch of them?
You guys want me to take this one, or?
Start it off.
I mean, I don't know that I definitely have an opinion. I think I am super excited to see the competition, though, between them and what that's doing, at least from a corporate lens. So we see the banks stepping up and, coming more aggressively at us with solutions. I think it's the first time in my career that data is at the center of every banking meeting that I'm part of. Blockchain's talked about, RPA is talked about, big data and analytics. So I think the team, the solution that can kind of tap that first is the one that's going to sit front. There is so much data that sits, whether it's with a Ripple, whether it's with a bank, that we can tap into as corporates. They see all of our collections, they see our payables, they see analytics, they have data from the market, and I think it's just a matter of somebody tapping into that and really playing that back at us.
No, I mean, I think the opportunities are extraordinary here, and it's very, very difficult to pick winners and losers. I think the most important thing is the amount of competition which is going to be out there. In our world, we do require cooperation. So there's it's a large ecosystem that has to work together. So as it changes, everybody does have to work together to do this. But competition will drive the change. I'm a big fan of shameless commerce. It actually lifts a lot of people out of poverty. It gets new products into the world. It does good things. It's not all shameless, of course, too. But yes, Netscape was one of the first companies there. I'm sure Ripple doesn't wish to be the Netscape of the world here, or any of the other firms. But I fully expect this to go in directions that we can't foresee, and new players to come in, and new coalitions to form to drive solutions. But as I said earlier, I think this genie is out of the bottle, and a lot of the customers that wish to use it, a lot of folks at a retail level understand what their needs are. A lot of corporates know exactly what they want to do to be successful in their businesses, and this will drive competition amongst the players, and hopefully good, successful cooperation to create a much more efficient infrastructure that supports, fast payments and clear information about their entire chain. So I'm upbeat about it, but I couldn't speculate, which is what it would be, as to who might win and who might lose.
I tend to agree with that. But I think the key thing I'm excited about is there's no one blockchain concept. I think that never going to work. Having a lot of different blockchains actually allows for individual problems to be solved in a very localized way to each company or market. But I think connecting it all together is the fascinating part, something I think Ripple's doing really, really well. Ability to have a common language across blockchains is going to be the important part about connecting the world. For companies like us, we don't want to get into building network again. Meaning I connect to one blockchain with one bank, and then I go to another blockchain for another thing. I think having a protocol that's consistent across all of the blockchains is going to be important for the use cases to be developed faster and brought to market faster.
Let's do this another way. You all operate in a lot of different countries, and we've heard a few times the need for sort of governments to embrace the technology. And I know the Bank of Canada is doing some cool stuff. Maybe I'm biased, I'm Canadian, but as you go around, and Japan comes up a lot, but as you go around the world, where do you find the most kind of welcoming technological and regulatory environment that will uplift this? Maybe that one to start, Paul?
One which stands out for me. I don't wish to endorse any particular country's advances in here. I've been quite impressed with Australia's approach to blockchain and new technologies and fintech. They seem to have, we work with a few of the banks in the Australian space. They seem to have very strong relationships with their regulators, easy conversations about what they're doing, making sure everybody's informed about any initiatives that they're taking to develop new solutions. I think it's publicly known that there are some significant projects out there in the space of real infrastructure. I think the Australian Stock Exchange is considering replacing its equity settlement system, CHESS, with a blockchain-based alternative. So I've seen, from my vantage point, a lot of activities going on in Australia, and a governance approach which seems careful, prudent, but quite encouraging of initiatives in this area. So I have been impressed with that. There are other countries that are moving very, very quickly. Obviously, Estonia. The Bank of England did an awful lot of research. It's thinking deeply about lots of questions. Singapore is doing some wonderful things as well. I think there are lots of jurisdictions doing some great things in this space.
Yeah, very similar. I think I would say Singapore is the one that stands out the most for us. We've actually put a lot of our treasury presence in Singapore most recently because of that. So just more advanced in the way that they're thinking about the fintechs, adopting new technology, being open to change. That would be the one that stands out to me.
I think the world is pretty large. There's a lot of innovation going on. One of the things I look at is innovation at scale, and what countries are going to be able to push that agenda and set the tone. I think with China being very forefront right now in terms of how they're looking at building solutions for the scale, even risk scores, credit scores wasn't even in the market. Innovating credit scoring system in a market that didn't exist and doing it at that scale and then lending against that is incredible. I think things that are happening in India with even though it's not on blockchain yet, the whole Aadhaar system and identity and authentication. I think all of these little innovative things that are happening around the world, it's a good sign that it could be applied and also done at a large scale. So, I'm a fan of a lot of countries and what they're up to right now.
Oh, neat. And as someone said in the last talk, we are at a crypto conference, so we have to bring up at least Bitcoin at least once, or other of the assets. I know we're here to talk about the rails, but a big part of the story these days are the incredible surge in value of these assets. A lot of people say they're speculative, but do you personally, or from your organization's viewpoint, see a benefit to owning the assets?
For us, I think one of our big premise and focus as a company is we want to economically empower our community to do more with an asset they have or a passion they have to earn more money. And in the process, our challenge is to develop trust in this platform so people feel like they could participate. And building trust between the community is a very complicated process for us. Whereas I think as part of building that trust and authenticating and identifying users and knowing who your customers are, and opening up access around the world, that tends to be a priority over Bitcoin at this stage. I think a platform that's trying to build trust to kind of go to Bitcoin at this stage it's a little premature when a lot of the world still operates in cash. For me, if somebody asks me which way do I want to run, I'll run to cash before I run to Bitcoin at this point.
You're short on Bitcoin.
For now.
Similar, from my perspective, very similar. We did, though, we do joke when I talk about that intercompany closed loop, we talk about potentially having a GE coin, right? Where, GE Aviation and GE Healthcare exchange non-physical currency, right? So I think we talk about it as the art of the possible, so thinking kind of outside the box. But yeah, we're definitely, there's kind of other bigger struggles for us right now that we're focused on.
I'll speak only for Treasury at the moment, but we do asset management, and Bitcoin is not one of the assets that we invest in. We're more of the U.S. government securities than cryptocurrencies at this stage. So from that perspective, no, we're not making investments. We're still very interested in what may happen in that space. I am struck, as you mentioned Bitcoin, that we have to mention it. I made some remarks to the finance groupings within the bank a little while ago, and I deliberately avoided using the word Bitcoin because it has such a tendency to skew the conversation. It immediately gets people off track, I find. Instead of focusing on a 9-year proof of concept, which has proven incredibly powerful, everybody focuses on the theft from an exchange or the theft from a wallet or the shady uses, perhaps, to which it's being put. And that really serious point, this incredible 9-year validation of the underlying technology, I think, is often skipped. So I'm not sure we should mention Bitcoin.
Fair enough. But I do want to go back to what Kristen said about the idea of GE using a native token. This is, again, going down the rabbit hole a little bit, but a lot of serious companies like the idea of creating, a native token, their own sort of currency that's for use on their blockchain. I mean, what Bitcoin is to blockchain, the GE token would be sort of to GE. And it's a way to fundraise. It's just sort of a neat sort of financial innovation. But, I mean, again, I live in that rabbit hole sometimes. Is that sort of, are ICOs and tokens part of your world at all?
Not ours.
Not us. All right, so we'll have to wait on that one. We'll take questions a couple minutes. Just one more area I want to touch on is just the regulatory environment.